Now. The recording may be made public on our YouTube channel, so please don't say anything you would not ordinarily say in a recorded public meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for coming today. So we're going to start off with status reports, which we haven't done in a few weeks. So let's hear from Onkar first. Are you ready, Onkar?
Yes, Scott. Hi all. Yeah, so in last call, we have discussed about the high-level design of on-demand API. So currently, what I'm doing is I'm going through the each and every component that we have discussed, and I'm trying to explore which kind of component we can get into. Like I'm just trying to exploring on how we can implement that design.
Okay, that sounds great. So maybe next week we would have some kind of design to present to the group and see if we can get some consensus on how to move forward with that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, I think that, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, okay.
And is that it, Onkar?
Yeah, that's it from my side.
Okay, yeah, so Ganesh, a status report on the Kafka topic exporter?
Last time I have delivered the error handling for exporter. So if any topic goes wrong or any message is incorrect or invalid message, so exporter should handle those. So those things have been delivered already. Now I'm looking at the high availability and scalability. So we are using replica set in the Kubernetes, so high availability is there. So I have validated few things on that. And regarding scalability, currently I'm exploring how we can use this, if we can use multiple containers for each topic, or probably we have to use ingress controller or some kind of load balancer. So there are a few things to explore. So probably I will come up with the deployment strategy in the Kubernetes using Helm. But nothing concrete as of now. I'll come up with some approach probably by the time we have next call. So I want to it now for the scalability.
Okay, that sounds great. And just to let everyone know, we did get this into the CEBA 2.0 release, so I made a couple of tiny changes to the Helm chart to make it into the release, but it's we now have the new exporter and its new Helm charts part of CEBA release. So that's good work on this, Ganesh.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
And anything else to report?
Yeah, that's all for now. I'll continue.
Okay, so I think that our next topic then would be the Redfish importer. Dinesh, do you have anything to report on Redfish importer?
Yeah, we have been working on the Jira stories of it. So now currently I'm working on the Jira story where we are having APIs to disable some events and enable events, as well as change the frequency of data collection. So I'm working on that, and then there is another Jira somebody is working on. Maddie is about periodically collecting the data. So once we finish those two Jiras, then I think we are ready to integrate with exporter and the name.
Okay, that sounds great. So when do you have like an expected date when you'd like to start work on the integration effort?
I can give that in a couple of days.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And does anyone else have any status reports or anything that you've been working on for the brigade? Okay, if not, then we will move forward with continuing the discussion from last time on the wall clock API. Let me screen share. I have not done much updating to my slide deck, though I did write up what I believe we were talking about last time on the call, some open questions and such. Does everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Hey, Scott.
so
Scott, before that,
sure.
Where do you store this file?
I have this on Google Drive, so I can make this slide deck available.
Okay.
Yeah, let me make
that
a note.
I have not reached out to the various different OLT vendors, but with this document, I think that will help to provide the narratives.
Sure. Yeah, so I can make. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a work in progress slide deck. I kind of updated it as we go. It seems like at some point I should codify it into an actual document from slides, but yeah, I will share the link with the group because it is in Google Docs and it is public, and once I've shared it, you can get to it.
Right. Well, just put a draft on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll write draft on the front. That's a good idea. Yeah, so this was what I wrote down from last time. Yeah, so last week we were kind of busy with the Zebra release, and it was a short week for us at the office since we had holiday on Thursday and Friday. So I kind of got this written up over the weekend. So I haven't had a chance to really write up much more than this from our discussion. But these were the sort of the 5 open questions it felt to me like we were at the end of last discussion. First off was, can we detect a partial first bin? For example, if a device comes up partway into the interval, it'll be missing some of its statistics. Is the number of minutes that the bin was up actually reported in OMCI? I think we just need to look at the OMCI spec and see if OMCI does give us an indicator that the bin is a partial. The next question was, how does time synchronization to the ONTs work? Sort of our assumption is that all of this relies on these things being in time sync, and that if everyone's doing 15-minute binning, then everyone has a consistent clock and they know when the 15-minute bin ends. So again, we should look into the OMCI spec, see if that's covered by the spec. I'm sort of assuming it is, but it needs verification. I think the biggest point of discussion last time was, do we implement binning at the left of the diagram, closest to the OLT and ONU, or do we implement binning at the right? So that would be just pushing everything up and then some analysis algorithm putting it into bins later. And I think different people strongly landed in one corner or another. It seems like we're still trying to gain consensus on that. And as Sean mentioned, he was going to ask some vendors about whether they have binning support in their hardware. Another question is, does the ag switch support binning? I was supposed to ask the ONOS FCAPS Brigade. I did sort of do that last week, but I think we probably got lost during the release process. So I need to ask around about that again. And then there was detecting rollovers. So if we have 15-minute bins, what happens if a counter gets exceeded in that bin? Is an alarm generated? Who's responsible for that? Do we have to configure intervals such that can't happen, etc.? So that was where I felt we sort of left things last week. So I'm just going to open it up now for discussion. Anyone who'd like to discuss any of these points or any other points?
I think on the third bullet regarding to the binning, I poke, I think during the brigade, the BAL 3.0 brigade. So what the Broadcom came back is the counter is on the chip. So I think so the chip just keep the counter going, and then it require an API call, or maybe the OpenOT adapter to pull the data out. Or I think it's a pull to query, and then the data was sent out. And on that message, it has the mechanism say whether you want to reset the counter to 0. But the timing when the counter got ported out is being done based on the higher level. So if you want to collect every 30 minutes, then something will come down to the chip to tell it report the current counter now, something like that. And then when, as I said, you can reset the counter to 0, or the higher level will just get a raw counter, and then the higher level will do the difference between current and previous counters every 15 minutes, like something like that. And the other thing is they don't believe at least for the edge core CPU, the data is not stored on the memory or CPU, it's on the chip. So on the Maple B0 chip or the Qumran chip, for the edge core cases. I don't know whether that's the understanding from the binning. There's no such thing as a binning. I think that it just, the counter just keep growing when they are, I don't know what frequency, like that, so, but the counter is keep growing on the chip, and then rely on the higher than bow layer to pull the data out. Does it make sense?
So it's up to VOLTHA, or the adapter within VOLTHA is going to have the smarts to do this polling,
Right.
and do it at the right interval. I think that's the implementation VOLTHA has now, is to do that polling. Though I don't know if it's trying to do this at wall clock intervals, or it's just trying to do it every 15 minutes from the time VOLTHA started up, or what it's doing. So we should look and see if VOLTHA is at all trying to line this up on wall clock time. I think that'd be interesting to know.
Again, I just to re-express my opinion, right? Have VOLTHA poll, have VOLTHA push the time that it pulled up, have something else understand where that means in terms of binning as well as in terms of rollover, right? Because it's easy enough to say, oh, my last clock was, or my last value was, 500, my new value is 10. I've obviously rolled over, right? Just want to express that opinion.
But how many times might you have rolled over during that? I mean, you could have rolled over 5 times.
Yeah. Well, that yes, there's still a configuration issue there. How often do I pull to prevent that?
I would assume the value for that parameter or counter to roll over probably is pretty long. So it definitely a question to ask, whether within certain time, what's the maximum counter each parameter can support. I think that's one of the question, right? I would say that it probably maybe 2 bytes or a byte of the data or something like that, and could be pretty big.
Well, I was assuming 32-bit for counters, but maybe it's 16. I don't know.
32. Okay, yeah, we can definitely ask.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think again, probably the best way to do this is having the device vendor to provide some input, if they ever want to get the device as part of the VOLTHA. And I think probably on the legacy process is maybe the EMS or the control card how the legacy OLT is doing that kind of functionality. If we say the functionality is on the control card, then that's equivalent to VOLTHA, right? So potentially VOLTHA need to do something. So I will reach out to the vendors and then provide some input on this one. And you know, I think, you know, maybe David, you can ask your switch guy and you know, see whether you know, is that something the switch people is doing, the Sienna switches, right? For example.
I mean, it's very typical for switches to do counters, right? Just count,
Right,
count, count,
right.
count, and
Right.
it's up to the external system to deal with it.
But when you say count is on the chip or is on the CPU, or you know, when the counter does it send out, right? So maybe you can poke
The count again, going back to SNMP, right? Counters typically aren't broadcast out. It's here's a value, I'm at a low level device,
Right,
counting
right.
whatever. Everything else is external.
Right. So are you saying the binging is more on the toward the right, right? Because the lower level just
Yep.
count.
I mean, that's
The lower level just count.
Yep.
And then if you want it out, you come and get it.
Yep.
I suspect, I think the edge core is the bow maple chip is the same way.
So it may be the only hardware device that truly gives us binning is the ONTs. I mean, we sort of know they do that. Well, we know it's at least part of the OMCI spec. I don't know if it's a mandatory feature or an optional feature, but we know the ONTs do that. So we certainly have a difference in what the ONTs and the ONUs, or the ONTs and the OLTs are capable of doing. The OLTs and the switches are probably just going to give us these straight counters, whereas the ONTs can give us bins. So I guess what I'm thinking is, oh, go ahead.
Julie, is the binning is part of the OMCI? What does it mean?
It's organized on 15-minute counters, or you know, that are reported up, and you can have two of them. So you have a current value that's incrementing, and then the history one, which contains the previous. And you know, to Scott's point, need to check whether the history one is mandatory or optional. And then you can, sort of like Davis was explaining for the other things, in order to get those values, you do have to pull. And so you can go and say, yes, get me the one from the history counter, or get me with the one from the currently incrementing counter to get the partial bin if it's gone 5 minutes in and you're doing troubleshooting or something like that. And then you set that 15-minute boundary based on doing a synchronized time message from the OLT. So all it knows is what interval that it's in, not the specific wall clock, but it knows which interval it is relative to the OLT. And then you can reset that as needed, but that's again directed from the OLT down to reset that clock function on the ONT.
So do we expect then that an ONT keeps pretty good time from the first time it was synchronized?
It should, because it has to stay in sync with the OLT at line rate, right? For the protocol.
Right.
So as long as you've got your timing working well between the OLT and ONT, once it is locked on there, it should be in good shape.
Okay, great. I think that answers at least the second bullet on my slide. You know, how does time synchronization work? I think it sounds like what you're saying. They don't specifically know the global wall clock, but they are synced to the OLT, and therefore they will be reporting their statistics in a predictable manner to the OLT based on what the OLT wanted the clocking to be.
Reporting if it's pulled, not
right. Pulled for the last interval.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right.
So it seems to me this is the easy case where the hardware just gives us our binning feature. The more complicated case is going to be these other devices that just have the simple counters, where at some level in the system, if the operator wants binning, we're going to have to implement it somewhere. I don't think we have Michael on the call today, but I expect if he was here, he would be advocating for pushing that functionality as far to the left as possible, which would be inside of the VOLTHA adapter. Whereas David, I know your position is you'll be advocating for pushing it as far to the right as possible, preferably pushing it right out of the NEM into the operator's analysis tools.
Well, and part of this is other than AT&T, does anybody care?
Everybody's care.
That's a question we should
No, does
ask the operator.
does any other operator need the binning, or is this an AT&T specific feature?
You mean every 15 minutes collection?
No, binning. Does anybody, who is using binning? Are the other operators doing it or not? Or do they have existing analysis tools that are doing it, or do they do some other mechanism?
I don't think the statement about, you know, AT&T want the binning or not, I think that's, I don't know whether that's, we just need, you know, all we need is we are able to have operation can have 15 minutes counters, the counter count every 15 minutes, whether it's binning or whether it's some other mechanism. I think that's depends on the implementation.
Okay, fair enough. It just seems to me that once you have one system that doesn't support this system in the hardware, then you, again, personal opinion, you might as well push it all off to the right. You just, that's, we're gonna have to coordinate data.
Right. I think on the chip level, if we can, first of all, my question is not about binning, it's about pushing and pulling. I think there are performance, you know, if we have to send a comment down to the chip and then let the two report. I don't know whether there will be a, you know, sort of like time delay, things like that, or scalability will be an issue.
And there's the age-old network management issue. How much of my load on my CPU is actually being used for management purposes as opposed to data purposes? Right? If you're polling too frequently your device to get metrics for performance, you're actually influencing the performance.
Right. I think it, you know, the routine every 15 minutes, that is routine, right? By operation, they will say, I want the current count. I think this, you know, based on my experiences, you know, I want this count, and then maybe I'll pull another count, the same count, maybe another 10-second or 30-second, and then usually what I would do, I would hand it, you know, I will visualize the way the counter is increasing, and increasing in what kind of manner. So I think when we you know, if we do the asynchronous poll, for example, it is, you know, it could be more often, but at the same time, we don't poll everybody. We just pull particular data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but you know, every 15 minutes the data will come in to go out to the northbound, and then potentially will just store in a flat file, and they got stored in somewhere else, right? So whether those data need to be processed or not is later on, when we found the pipeline, we can go back to that timestamp and then find, and then the timestamp nearby to do the analysis. Otherwise, the data just go into a flat file, a zip file, and then store away.
Yeah. And I thought we learned last week from someone, I can't remember who, that the data is actually delayed from poll time to use time or visualization time, could be minutes for latency there, because of other things going on in the back office. So, because I guess I think if I remember correctly, it was still coordinating data from multiple systems, before visualization or analysis at the operations center. So it's not instantaneously pull visualize, instantaneous pull visualize. There was some latency there.
Okay, so I will send out more emails, say, you know, as I said, the legacy, when I say legacy, maybe Atran, CIG, and all those they experience, they have their own EMS, and then exactly how they can do this, and how do we translate that to using the VOLTHA as a control. And I think we need guidance from that side.
Yeah.
I think operators, sorry, David.
Was it me, someone else?
Oh.
So AT&T has the 15-minute requirement, or it will be changing. It should be like configurable parameters.
It should be a configurable parameter, just in case other service providers say they have every 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But I think that is I think that is above the chip, you know, maybe even above the adapter level. But again, I think the 15 minutes interval, I think that's a very common. But I think we do also have 24-hour, just you know, total amount of the count of the day. Sometimes
Yeah.
I do see that coming up somewhere.
What I've seen is really, you know, you collect data at some small interval, whether it's 15, 5, whatever, and then you roll it up probably to an hour summarization, from an hour summarization to a day summarization, from a day summarization to a week, you know, and then depending on how much you want to compact the data and average over it, you might keep 2 years worth of data. Now you're not, you know, depending on how much you want to store in the raw format versus rolled up, that's going to be fairly dependent on the carrier or the enterprise.
I think yeah, I think this could be an easy answer when we have a vendor input on this one. But right now, I don't think we have much input. Okay, so I'll collect some input. So Scott, if you can just send out the link and put a draft on it, so we can share this one out while we reach out to the. That'll be great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I'm thinking about sending to the CIG, even including Nokia, Calyx, Atran, Sienna, you know, and so who else I miss? Tellabs and EdgeCore, Tellabs, and Tippet.
And what about polling the operators to see what their requirements are on this 15-minute binning thing?
That I'll include the operator when I send out the questions.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that really has been our central point that we haven't been able to close on over the last meeting or two, has been, you know, whether we implement some kind of binning abstraction as far to the left as possible or as far to the right as possible. Yeah, I think it's easy for us to argue in favor of moving it to the right here because we don't have Michael on the call, but if he was here, he'd be making all of the counter arguments.
Hey, let's make the decision right now.
Yeah, we declare a quorum and make the decision.
My suspect is the decision will be common. I think it's, you know, it's just whatever we want. I mean, not whatever, but as long as once we understand the service provider's need, I think the solution is common. So it's just people talking about from different angles, but I think the final solution should be the same.
Yeah,
and
again,
again,
I hope so.
Again, you know, the purpose of VOLTHA is serving different hardwares, right? So we need we need our customers, which is the hardware vendors, to provide input. How exactly the best way to do it?
Yeah, and ultimately we can't do something that the hardware didn't give us support for. So the ONTs giving us the hardware binning is great, but if the the ONTs doing that is great, but if the OLTs don't do it, then we can't just make that feature up ourselves. The best we can do is pull at a reasonable determined interval and push the data up to someone else who can try to bin it.
Okay.
Do we have anything else we'd like to discuss?
Yeah, Scott, I have like one thing to discuss, like in NEM proxy. So I have something to discuss. Can you give me access to screen share?
Sure, we'll do.
Just let me know once my screen get visible to you.
It is visible here.
Yeah. So last time what we have decided is to make the consistency between the APIs in VOLTHA. So we can have a NEM proxy which can play that role. So based on our assumption, I have designed the NEM proxy in this way, where we can have an API server which is responsible for making the REST as well as gRPC call. So for example, if I am making any REST call, I am assuming Dinesh is going to work on like Redfish importer, that is totally a REST based framework. And my work is like a gRPC client work. So I'm going to connect to VOLTHA.
Sorry, the importer and name interface is gRPC. It's not REST based.
Okay, then that would be a great thing. Like, so if it is like in future, if anything which is coming into a REST, we can integrate over here in Redfish, and whatever the gRPC communication we have, we can integrate over here. And the API server, currently what I am thinking about, that would be a REST based server, which API client, that is the operator would request to the API server, and that request will internally get converted into the API client and will connect to the VOLTHA server. And after, once the test action or something request get submitted to the VOLTHA, we will get the accepted call as we discussed in last high level design. And whatever the result we are getting the result into a Kafka, and that like we can obviously pass to the API server, and that can be again passed to the API client. So this is like a synchronous design I have currently in my mind. So I want to discuss the design in detail. If anything, have you any point you have in this current component diagram?
So I don't understand Kafka interfacing with API server. What is this interaction?
So basically, as a part of OMCI test action, if you could see here in high level design, so we have a NEM proxy. Whenever the request gets submitted in OMCI test action, we will get a 3 response. That is the first, we will get the 2 response. The first would be the request. The second would be the test submitted to the ONT, that is accepted response. That would be a success or fail. And we will get the result. So whenever we are getting the result, as a part of implementation, we are putting result into a Kafka bus.
Yeah.
So currently the same thing I have followed here. So in terms of only the OMCA test action, we can put our result into a Kafka bus, and that Kafka bus result can get like we can get it. The API server will get it from the Kafka bus and put it into the give it back to the API client.
Okay.
Okay. So I just wanted to discuss on this diagram so that the inputs are more valuable to me while making this initial more detailed component design diagram.
So let me ask one question. So on the accept, the API server sent a request. The accept came back from the gRPC client, means okay, the gRPC, I accept this request. What about if and then the gRPC send the request down to VOLTHA, and what if the VOLTHA reject the request? Then would there be any rejection?
So we can reverse back with the fail, like this should be a accepted slash fail thing. So
Okay.
that is we always have. So in any case of request response, we always have success and failure. But currently I have shown accepted only, but we do have a failure case over here.
Okay.
So I guess
So the first accept and on the right and the second accept on the left is not quite correlated at all, right?
Yeah. So first that is like that is also a success slash failure thing. So when I'm going through the sequence diagram, so I'm currently doing it. So in that you will get to know basically the once suppose consider the OMCI test action request submitted to the ONT from the OLTA, we can get the test submitted response, that is success slash failure, that is 0, 1. So based on that, we can say that our requests are submitted successfully to the ONT. So currently I have shown only accepted, but we do have a failure, like fail response over here also.
Okay.
So one point that I would make, I think the most consistent with the rest of our approach to API would be to use gRPC throughout, or maybe I should say gRPC on the far right between the API client and the server rather than REST.
Okay.
Would that be an issue? And do other people agree with me?
And VOLTHA would not support REST interface anymore, right? So on the left, there's no REST.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for consistency's sake, let's use gRPC on the right of this diagram as well, rather than introducing REST and now we have northbound people having to communicate both gRPC and REST to different parts of the system. Just try to keep it all gRPC if we could.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. Then definitely I'll remove this API server part and I'll make it gRPC server. So in this case, I'm just trying to understand, like this API server will be a gRPC server and this would be a gRPC client request, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then that makes sense for me. No problem. I'll do the further implementation also, like further deep down things.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any more comments on this design? Okay, well this looks like a good start. I look forward to seeing more.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Anything else anyone would like to bring up for discussion this meeting? Okay, if not, then I think we'll be back next Monday, and Sean will have much data from us or for us from operators and from vendors.
Thank you.
And we'll try to close on this right most leftmost thing. Yeah.
Well, at least get them on the call.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. And talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you.